In 2016, I was diagnosed with an incurable blood cancer. It's called follicular lymphoma. It was a real shock. I wasn't ill. I didn't think I was ill. And getting a diagnosis like that was just it was like a shell shock, an absolute blow. And I didn't know anything about it. Blood cancer is the 5th biggest cancer in the UK, but there's 150 different types and I'd never heard of it. One of the things that I had practiced is to be very intentional about the life that I live. And it means that you get the life that you hopefully want rather than the one that kind of just comes along. So after 20 years of working in the advertising industry, I was approached by Facebook to see if I would like to join them. And this was back in 2013. And the position that they spoke to me about was to head up Europe, the Middle East and Africa. Now in 2013, Facebook was a very different company to what Facebook is today. It was much smaller. I remember going into the London office and there were less than 200 people there. Today we have over 4,000 people. People often ask me, like, why did Facebook come to you? Here you were working in advertising and actually this is a technology company. That's true, Facebook is a technology company, but actually the business of Facebook is actually the business of advertising. So everything I'd learned in the previous 20 years, the contacts, the marketing industry, the process, actually that was all absolutely relevant to the business of Facebook. And so that's why they came and spoke to me. Before the pandemic, you would find me on a plane most weeks, traveling here, there and everywhere. I might be meeting with politicians, I might be doing media, I might be speaking at a conference. But one of the things that I absolutely love is the work that we do with female entrepreneurs. Because I really think that the tech revolution that we've all lived through and are still living through has actually been an amazing enabler for women. To be able to start a business today just with a mobile phone, I'm really pleased and privileged to have met so many people that are running unbelievably successful businesses today where they started just with a mobile phone. It's a really difficult question to think about what's your career highlight. And my honest answer is, I hope it's not happened yet. I hope it's still to come. It was an unbelievable privilege to have opened up the first Facebook office on the African continent. That's definitely a moment that will stick with me my whole life. I could never have imagined as a young girl that I would one day open a letter that would tell me that I had been awarded a CBE from Her Majesty the Queen for services to the creative industries. It was one of the most extraordinary days, and having that moment in the palace was really, really special. The working practices that we've seen today have changed so much, even since I started in my career. I remember after I was pregnant for the first time, I have 4 children, and I'd been back at work about a year. My daughter was 1. And I just remember thinking, I'm just not doing a very good job at anything. I was at a point where I was really quite ready to quit. And I remember going to talk to my bosses about it, and I don't know, I didn't go in with a plan. I just blurted it out that if I had 1 extra day, I think I would be in a better position. Would you be prepared to try it? And they said yes. So I worked for 16 years, 4 days a week. I think there's trust at the heart of it. And I think as an employer, if you're very clear about what you're asking the employee to do, well then in this world with the amazing technology that we have, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it really from anywhere. As a mum of 4, people say to me, gosh, what can you tell me? What's your best tips? First and foremost, try and get rid of the guilt. There's a huge amount of guilt that women have that they don't feel they're doing anything well. And I think it starts from the question that people ask themselves is, how's the balance? How's your balance in your work and your life? And that's just a horrible question because inherent in the question is the likelihood that something's out of balance and therefore it's a problem and therefore it needs to be addressed. Whereas if you just take a step back and say, this is my life, and at certain times I'm indexing on one side versus another, that changes the nature. So I would be kind to yourself. I wouldn't have the conversations in your head and assume that everybody knows what you're thinking. So often, especially young women, and I remember I did this, I used to have these exhausting conversations in my head, exhausting, running through all the possibilities of what may or may not happen, and then get annoyed when somebody didn't know that whole process that I'd gone through, but they had no idea what I was thinking. So the more that we have open and honest conversations, I think the better.